Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Friday Morning at the Fun House alongside Mr. Martin Popoff. Good
Morning,
morning,
sir.
sir.
Morning. We're trying something different here. I've got you booming really loud over here, which is pretty cool. So it's neat. We got a rousing morning going. So very
There you
cool.
go. Yeah, I got you on pretty loud too. It's like it's
Yeah.
early. We're like, I'm not a coffee guy. I don't do caffeine, so I need something to wake me up here this morning. And Martin's voice is doing that.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Excellent, excellent. All right.
50 degrees here this morning when I woke up, Martin. A little chilly.
Yeah, it's chilly here too. Definitely. Winter's on the way. But
Yeah.
yeah, we could use some rain. It hasn't rained for a while here. So, anyways.
We got when did we get some? No, we haven't had any rain all week. I think geez, when did it rain last? We got a little bit, I think, over last weekend. I think Saturday we might get some. I'm just hoping that the rain stays away just a little bit so I can put the cover on the pool. You know it's time to close that pool when you get up in the morning, you turn the pump on and you see the steam rising up off the water and evaporating. You're like, yeah, it's time to close this damn thing.
Nice.
So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so today we've got an interesting show for you guys today. So Martin and I were kind of, we did this whole riff series, which we're not quite finished yet. We got one more to go, and we were just talking about like bands who you consider doing a certain type of music, and then all of a sudden they have this one song or maybe two songs that could qualify as a doom song, right? It's like the strangest thing. You get this band, maybe they're just a hard rock band, or maybe they're a pop band, or maybe they're a prog band. Then all of a sudden they hit you with this song, and all those elements of what we consider bands like Sabbath and Cathedral and Trouble and Candlemass, what they do normally, you hear these elements in this song, and it like kind of sticks out. Kind of strange, right? Is it doom? Did they
Yeah.
intend it for it to be doom, or are it just those elements that we associated with doom just showing up here? Because I mean, anybody can use these elements. And before we get started on our list, we've each picked out 15 bands that have a song or songs that maybe qualify as doom. Is it a doom song? But so what is it? So what qualifies as doom, right? Well, we've talked about many times this whole tritone sound, right? Which Black Sabbath pretty much made famous on the title track to Black Sabbath, right? So it's this kind of whole minor key thing. In a lot of instances, some of these doom bands, they'll play in like C standard tuning, or drop D or something like that. Generally speaking, guitars are Les Pauls, Gibson SGs, right? With humbucking pickups. You very rarely see doom bands playing Telecasters or Strats. I mean, it happens, but not all that often. And usually speaking, especially with doom bands, the bass player is basically following along with the guitar riff, right? So it's
Yeah.
very kind of these kind of minor key doomy notes in succession makes up this whole kind of doom sound. I don't know if you want to kind of expand on that at all, Martin.
Yeah, the funny thing, every time I think about this, I think of that great time when Tim Henderson and I got to interview all the members of Sabbath in a hotel room, right? In pairs. And I remember we were talking to Tony about Doom, and he goes to us, well, just all that happened is instead of going from here, where's my guitar hands here? Here to is that the right one? Yeah, that's the right hand. Instead of going from here to here, I just went from here to here. so so yeah, that's how he kind of explains the tritone, right? The Diablos in Musica, the
Yeah,
devil's note kind of
devil's
thing,
note.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
Tony basically just a blues guitar player, right? When he started out. And I think that when, you really look at the core of all these doom bands, I mean, basically what they're playing is really slow, heavy, distorted, fuzz laden, minor key blues riffs and licks. That's really what they're doing.
mhm.
And for some reason, it just has this menacing sound, and thus the doom subgenre of heavy music was created, right? But
Yeah.
it's really not all that groundbreaking of a style of music, but using all these elements we've talked about, the certain types of guitars and amps and effects and things, and the tempos that they're played in, and all of a sudden this big menacing sound comes to play. So I think when a normal pop or rock band uses these elements, it sticks out like a sore thumb as something really, really different. It's something, I mean, it's like, oh, that's that heavy song that they did. And then you
Yeah.
listen to the song, it's like, oh, that's got doomy elements. I mean, do we owe it all to Sabbath? Perhaps, probably. But lots of bands have done this. As we're going to show you today, we're going to talk about, we guess we got 30 plus songs here of bands that maybe aren't associated with this style of music that actually did dip their feet into the doom at some point in time during their careers.
Yeah.
So we've
Yeah.
got some surprises here too. So
Yeah. Definitely. All right. Well, I'll kick it off. My first three. My first one. I've always thought this was like this, and it's kind of one of the songs that inspired this episode a little bit. Is AC/DC "The Razor's Edge," the title track from "The Razor's Edge," which is quite bizarre, right? So the title track is this slow, sloggy, menacing sort of tune. You don't really expect that, right? And it's got the the religious cult, satanic cult chanting with the nasal background vocals AC/DC has, right? But yeah, that's a totally dark song from this album. And next, I don't have a physical of it, but David Bowie, "She Shook Me Cold." From the, let's see, third album, I believe, right? But yeah, so this is the record where there's heavy drums, heavy guitar. It's almost like it was a new direction. It was definitely this is pre-glam, but it's getting into the place where David Bowie could have become a hard rock band. But "She Shook Me Cold" is definitely that way, and a little bit Savior Machine as well, although that's got a little bit. That's almost like a doom ballad. That would almost be like a Heavy Planet Caravan or something like that, because it is actually it's a full volume, full band sound. But "She Shook Me Cold" is hilarious. It even has kind of like a stoner metal kind of vocal from David on it. So, and then my next one, I don't have a physical of this either. Frank Marino, "Mahogany Rush," "Requiem for a Sinner." Yeah. Because of the right, and it's so and it's slow, and it's driving, and I believe it's the first track on the album, right? So I think that's a pretty cool one as well. He's got a few things that could go that way, but that one always stuck out as the best one. So there you go. That's my first three.
And one of the things that you're talking about during the Bowie pick is like, I think there can be a doom feel even if we're not featuring distortion or fuzz or big amplified sound. It's just a matter of getting the right kind of notes and getting that right kind of vibe. So, my first pick is a perfect example of that. So, all right, probably most people would not expect me to pick this band in this episode, but in actuality, they had one song which qualifies. We're talking "Queen of the Hours" by the Electric Light Orchestra from their very first album, right? Because and it's not even a guitar. It's an amplified cello. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Like, what the hell? I remember when I was a kid, this was I don't know, maybe the third or fourth ELO album I picked up, and I was already into Out of the Blue and the more what you typically expect from ELO. And then I got this album, and I remember hearing this. I'm kind of like, what the hell is going on here? Because this album doesn't sound like anything else in their catalog. And then once that song came along, I was already, pretty much getting into Sabbath and whatnot. And I was like, holy crap, that's heavy as all hell. But is that a guitar? I think that's a cello. Could a cello ever be that heavy? Well, it is. So very, very cool. So there's their "Queen of the Night" by ELO. Next up, and this is one of the songs that Martin and I first kind of were talking about when we were discussing doing this, and that is the "Man of Miracles" from Styx.
Yeah.
From right here. And that is just, I mean, to me, that's using the Uriah Heep Black Sabbath playbook right off the bat, and even Deep Purple a little bit, yeah. Oh yeah, it's just absolutely doom. And then you got James Wise, great vocals for that. And it's just so funny when I interviewed Dennis DeYoung. He's like, we started talking about the wood and nickel period, and he's obviously the guy watches the show, right? And then out of nowhere, he's like, "Yeah, you really like that Man of Miracles song. I know you do. I know you do." He goes, "I'm not big on it." Like, and it's not surprising, right? This is unlike anything else they've ever done. I'm like, I was like sitting here, I'm like, I got all deflated. I'm like, God, Dennis doesn't even like that kick-ass early song. I'm like, he probably doesn't like any of that wood and nickel stuff, right?
So, what great production on that too, man. It's just so alive.
Massive. Yeah. Absolutely massive. And his organ is recorded so well. And then those guitars come in. It's just like, it's just crushing. It reminds me of, well, I don't want to give it away. It reminds me of another song by another band. When you talk about it, we'll bring it up again. But anyway, let's move on to King Crimson, because they got to be here too. Again, a prog band, although at the time not really labeled as prog. But we got to go all the way back to 21st Century Schizoid, man. I mean, Martin, arguably the first ever doom song, because this is coming before Sabbath, right? And that's pretty heavy stuff. I mean, Fripp is coming up with just dangerous and ominous.
We might have one or two more in our honorable mentions. We'll see, that are a little earlier, but
true. And then to stay on the King Crimson thing, we're gonna go with One More Red Nightmare. Dum 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 bam.
Yeah.
It just like hits you like a hammer. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like what in the world, you know? And what's really
Yeah.
cool about One More Red Nightmare, it's like during like the verse leading up to the chorus, it's actually a little brighter, right? But then they come back, Fripp and Wet come back in with that menacing riff, and it's just like, oh, it's just so good. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
King Crimson did it too. There's probably
Yeah, the ELO one's awesome, right? It's so creepy, right? It's such a great atmosphere that they make with that, and it's got kind of the Mars Bringer Award to kick it in, right? Which is a total Doom trope, right?
yeah. Oh
Sabbath
yeah.
used it, Diamond Head used it, right?
It's funny because like when I was thinking of, because I mean the whole point of this is to kind of think of bands that you wouldn't expect, and I'm like looking through my racks and stuff like that, and I
Yeah.
came upon E, and I'm like, oh, ELO would be something good to pick here. Nah, they don't have one of those songs, and then I started
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
and I'm like, that song, right? The freaking heavy cello song, right? And I was like, that's totally what we're looking for. And
Yeah,
it's one of the best examples of this, of like they did a Doom song, hell yeah, and they used the cello to do it too, right?
yeah.
Forget the guitars, forget the fuzz pedal or the distortion box and all that crap. Let's just crank out that dun 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 dun
Yeah,
dun.
for sure, for sure. Okay, so next I'm gonna go with Ted Nugent. I don't have a physical of the album with Venom Soup on it. It's Weekend Warriors, right? But Venom Soup is absolutely I picked this as well because I think Stranglehold somewhat applies. We'll get to that in a sec. But Venom Soup is just completely out there and strange for them. It's way too slow. Although Stranglehold is slow as well. But Venom Soup is definitely has the Diablos in Musica thing. It's got the completely menacing, disgusting title, Venom Soup, right? It's like Venom Soup, right? It's like really evil sounding, right? But yeah, we always loved that song as kids. It was just way heavier than anything he did because again, it's just that whole minor evil sort of sound. And I think Stranglehold would kind of fit as well. You could turn that into a Doom song. I could see Sabbath doing that maybe on the first album as a replacement. Imagine that on there instead of the Warning or something like that, right? On and I think it's a riff that part of this Doom thing has a closer link than other forms of modern heavy metal to the blues, and I think Stranglehold has that a little bit as well. Okay, next I'm gonna go with Stampeder's Wild Eyes. This is a poppy weird band. I've actually got Wild Eyes on 2 different Stampeders albums. I guess this is a live album, right? But
I have that one. That's pretty good. Yeah.
oh yeah. But yeah, so this is just a weird one that's so that part is like old Doom, but then it goes so it's got the Doom stuff in it as well. It's just a weird a weird thing coming from this odd pop band who remind me of like a cross between Grand Funk and Dr. Hook. I don't know. It's almost like that podcast episode. That would have been a good one for this. I did a podcast episode for History in 5 Songs called "What's the Point of This Band?" And this is a band where I think, well, why do these guys make this kind of music? It's just bizarre. They always looked way heavier than they were, right? And then my last one in this trio is exactly the same thing. The Osmonds with Crazy Horses.
Oh yeah.
It's a total big massive Doom monster. It's just them trying to do heavy metal, almost a little bit like Paul McCartney saying rising to the challenge of making Helter Skelter or something like that. It's just this weird bizarre song. The video is hilarious. Everybody's got to see the video, the way they're dressed up and the moves with the chicken arms and all that stuff, right? But totally heavy song, and Tank covered it. So that's definitely a cool Doom one by a definitely not a Doom band, the Osmonds.
No, not at all. Yeah, that's like the poster child for this episode, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those those non-heavy bands that did one heavy song, right? Yep, for
Yeah.
sure. All right, next up for me, I'm gonna go with the title track to King's X Dogman. Right here, what a great way to kick off that album, right? Dun, 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 the massive riff, arguably one of their heaviest songs, and just total Doom. And I think that Doug's vocal just slots in really good next to Ty's riff on that, just so crushing and so heavy. Kansas. Yes, Kansas. I knew they had at least a couple in them, and I did find two. We're gonna go with Death of Mother Nature Suite, the final track on the self-titled Kansas album. In fact, it's really interesting because Apercu or Aperçu, however they say it, and Death of Mother Nature Suite kind of segue into each other. And as soon as like Death of Mother Nature Suite kicks in, it's just so crushing and so heavy and so doomy. And it comes after the song before it, which is very much in their kind of symphonic prog rock style. And then also, I'm going to give a nod to Lightning's Hand from Point of No Return, which I think not only the lyrical content, not only the way Robbie Steinhardt sings the song, but I think the riffing and the violin and the keyboards just really add those kind of doomy textures to it. And then you get the lightning coming in. It's just total like an homage to like the coolness and the evilness of like the Black Sabbath song that we talked about earlier. And then last one for this round, I'm going to go with Aqualung by Jethro Tull. I mean, classic. This is, bam, bum, bum, bam, bam. Let's do it again. Bam, bum, 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 bam, dun. I mean, Ian Anderson stomping around on stage. I could just imagine seeing Tull in this time period, them playing that live. I mean, I've seen them play it live many times over the years, but I would have loved to have seen it back in the day. And yeah, just such a crushing song. And I think Tull's got a few other songs that came close to qualifying, but that's really the one. You can make a case for Locomotive Breath, although that's a little faster and whatnot. But yeah, Aqualung got to be on this list.
Yeah. Well, here's a wacky exercise. You could probably find cool Tull songs that could replace the likes of Embryo and Orchid and Planet Caravan and Laguna Sunrise, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah, they'd have some really cool acoustic stuff that you can imagine on a Sabbath record, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I like your Kansas picks, and they remind me a little bit more of moving into a Deep Purple space, like a doomy Deep Purple space. And Lightning's Hand reminds me a little bit of Wring That Neck. It's got some of those kinds of runs in it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So my next one is Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs. I've always thought, Day of the Eagle a little bit as well. But Bridge of Sighs is just, again, it's really mining that space of the most menacing heavy blues that you can imagine, right? Okay. It's just got a doomy foreboding kind of chord sequence to it. And they're just such a stuffy coagulated band anyways, right? It just really sounds oppressive like doom. And my next one, a funny one, which I'm sure we'll talk about once we do the review of the concert you're going to shortly, but Machine Messiah from Yes. And obviously not the whole song, but that whole opening thing is complete total doom. And this is a surprising band for that, because I don't think, I mean, you could probably find some doomy things that are not arranged like heavy metal, but this is actually arranged like heavy metal. And they don't abandon it completely at the beginning. It's not over with. I mean, they do come back to that later in the song, but yes, they literally kick off that concert you're going to go to. Probably they did in Toronto when he was with.
Oh, it's the opening song. Wow, pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah. So Machine Messiah, and next I'm going to go with Kiss. I was going to go with things like God of Thunder, Watching You, 100,000 Years. Those ones always. I remember as a kid, they just seemed the most kind of like scary, mean, depressing sort of songs. So those are Kiss songs that are doom. But I just thought it was hilarious. I went through this album, Carnival of Souls, again, just this morning to prepare. And I could not believe it, but there are literally 6 bona fide doom songs on here, easily 6. And the rest are, this is, people talk about this as them trying to do the grunge thing, right? And grunge can be doomy, but what I learned just this morning about this is it's almost closer to a doom album than a grunge album. So Hate, Rain, Master and Slave, Jungle, In My Head, and It Never Goes Away, all doom songs. And the rest of them kind of like lighter, dark grunge songs and a couple with some melody to them, but everything else on here, total doom. So half this album, total doom album. And that is my 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, obviously they did that in the height of the grunge era, but I think that's more coming from Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, who are
Yeah.
coming from Black Sabbath and all that kind of stuff that we're talking about. So yeah. All right, my first for the next round is Miss Misery from Nazareth from Hair of the Dog. I mean, sometimes the simplest riffs can sound the most evil, right? I mean, this is as simple and sludgy as it gets. Da-na-na, da-na-na, dun, dun. I mean, that's it. And it's so crushing and easily the heaviest song they've ever done. And as heavy as anything Sabbath or Budgie did at the time. But again, not the norm for this band. Next up, I'm going to go with Paranoid from Grand Funk Railroad from the Grand Funk album. I mean, again, that opening barrage, and kind of like the song you were just talking about before, like Machine Messiah, they hit you with the crushing down, 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 and they hit you with that at the beginning. And then the rest of it's kind of like bluesy and psychedelic. And then they don't revisit that riff till later on in the song again, kind of like the Machine Messiah thing. But man, it opens. It's so dark and menacing and just absolutely crushing. And Farner's guitar and Mel's bass, it's just nasty sounding. So that's that one. Here's a surprising one that I'm sure most people would not expect on this show. Chicago, Martin's favorite band, because those horns, they get really heavy. Now, the horns have nothing to do with it, actually. This is all about Terry Katz's guitar. So this, of course, is Chicago 8. And there's 2 tracks on here. First of all, you got the big hit single, which the song itself is not doom at all, but the beginning is, and that's Old Days, because the beginning of the song kicks off down, down, down. And it's
Oh, that's it. Okay, I missed that because I went and played the song. I'm going, why did he pick this one? Kind of
it's
thing.
all this is the beginning. It's
Okay.
but again, kind of like the Grand Funk thing and Machine Messiah. They intro with that, and then the rest of it's just the old days, whatever, the horns and then Cetera's vocals, and then later in the song the riff comes back again, and it doesn't fit at all, but it's just so cool. And then the other song on here is Hideaway, and
Yes,
Hideaway,
that one definitely. Yeah.
that's heavy and doomy,
Yeah.
so good. So it's just weird how they throw these two on here because the rest of this is, typical Chicago jazzy pop, right? But those two are just like, what is going on there? Makes you think, wow, it'd be kind of, obviously he's not around anymore, but if Terry Kath at the time would do a Doom album, how cool would that be, right? Pretty cool, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, back to
All
you.
right. Was that 3? Okay. All right. My next one is Cheap Trick off Wiedersehen. I don't have a physical of that, but I mean, definitely. And then it settles in, right? It's got the caveman drum beat. It's got the extreme vocal from Robin. It's got the Diabolus in Musica tritone of the lick from Rick. And as a kid, every metalhead that actually became a rock star, unlike myself, but all of us who were of that age listening to that loved that song. It was instantly the best Cheap Trick song for if you were a metalhead in the 70s, right? So that was really cool. And then I went with Led Zeppelin, Dazed and Confused. Total doom, but again, a really cool one that it is linked to the blues, and obviously it's also linked to another songwriter as well. Yeah, I think it's super slow, it's super depressing, it's long. So yeah, doom can be long songs, they can extend songs. So I thought that, and then I also thought How Many More Times from this album as well, which does the exact same thing. It gives you the darkest version of the blues you can imagine, but it's up tempo. But it's still a doom riff. And then I thought, just for kicks, In My Time of Dying from Physical Graffiti, I think is pretty doomy. Again, same thing. It's marrying the blues with the doom, or telling you where doom came from a little bit. And then I think Achilles' Last Stand from this record as well. It gives you the tritone kind of feel, but also we always think of this one as being a little more power metal with the gallop and stuff like that. But the chord sequence wise is totally doom. Let's see. Next I have Uriah Heep Gypsy. Total Doom song from here. I mean, this is a band that's maybe a bit of a cheat because they're a little bit adjacent anyways to this whole thing, but again, you know, the heavy guitar, the heavy Hammond organ, but basically you know, I love the you know, and a word we haven't even brought up yet when we talk about doom, medieval, right? Medieval, Renaissance, classical. And Gypsy has that cool medieval kind of chord sequence to it, you know, and the da 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 doom 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 doom. It's very classical, right? And very ornate and baroque. Um, and then I'll go with Shadows of Grief. Always love that one on here. But again, you know, anytime you've got that cool descending kind of chord sequence here, you've got the da 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 da, and then the flourishes and all that stuff in there. So that's a really cool one. And then I've always thought this was their doomiest song ever, Rainbow Demon from here. You know, you got rainbow in the title, you got demon in the title. What more do you need, right? But it's just so it's just really, really dark and oppressive kind of thing. And that is my 10, 11, and 12.
You know, I just thought about it. Neither one of us have it in our list, but you know, we mentioned rainbows and all that kind of stuff. Could Stargazer possibly fit this mold? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Rainbow probably has a few. Man on the Silver Mountain.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, let's see what else is slow from them. Well, they got Love's No Friend, but that's more of a heavy blues. But it is pretty dark. It's pretty dark of chord sequence as well, and lyrics, right? Love's No Friend, right? So, so that one kind of fits as well. Yeah, they'd have a few.
Shed maybe from Long Live Rock and Roll, maybe.
Right? Yeah, yeah. You could. You know, you could heavy up even some of the ballad type songs, and they'd turn into doom songs from those guys as well.
Yeah. I think so. All right, next up, gonna go with Knife Edge from Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Right.
No real guitars needed here, right? Just a creepy heavy Hammond organ, a big distorted fuzz bass. That's all you need here. I mean, that song is heavy as all hell.
Yeah.
But you know, again, from a prog band, right? But yeah, that's definitely crunchy. I always thought this song kind of is very, very doomy, although this was a you know, a nice little hit for the band. But I'm gonna go with the title track to Bad Company. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really doomy. Again, it's bluesy, but you know, dun 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 dun. It's just, I mean, it doesn't get much more doomy than that. Very, very cool. And I think Paul does a great job singing.
You know, part of the litmus test with these things is you can picture a pure doom band from today covering that song.
Doing a cover of it, right?
Anytime, yeah. You can imagine, you can hear the doom version of it in your head, right? Yeah.
So why haven't we? So why haven't we heard like some of these metal bands doing covers of Bad Company, the song?
Yeah,
because I mean, exactly. It seems like a no-brainer, right?
Somebody covered that song, but it wasn't a doom band. Who the hell was that? I think it was one of those new metal. Wasn't it like Disturbed or somebody? One of those kinds of bands. Somebody covered that song.
Yeah,
I can't remember. But
I would think that maybe most bands would shy away from it because they know they can't sing it like Paul. Because otherwise, I mean, it's like a no-brainer to choose something like that. All right, and my last for this round is Peel the Paint from Gentle Giant from the Three Friends album. So yeah, they had the sax in there, the heavy guitar. You could just figure, like, you know, the big giant on the back. You could just figure him like walking through the woods. You know, he's got two little people in his hand. He's just walking around, lumbering around. It's just totally awesome. I remember the first, you know, when I first started getting into Gentle Giant, at first it was kind of difficult, and then that song came on because it's the first album I ever bought from them. I'm like, all right, I'm on board with that because that sounds like Sabbath to me. I love it. Of course, they don't do anything else like that, but very, very cool stuff. So yeah, Peel the Paint from Gentle Giant.
What's the is it the song is it the first song on Civilian that's the super heavy one? Is it the title track? That's kind of doomy. It's or in chord sequence. Yeah. There's one tune in there.
There's some rocking stuff on that album.
Yeah. All right. So my last three, these are all kind of a set, which you'll notice in a second. Motley Crue, Power to the Music from the Motley Crue album. There's a fair bit of doom on here, and this is a little bit like Carnival of Souls, where they're trying to be slow and grungy kind of thing as well. But the production is punishing on here. The drum performance is punishing, and power to the music is definitely pretty big in doomy. And John Corabi's got some vocal fry in his voice and stuff. But the funny thing about this is one of their new singles, Dogs of War, is a little bit like that as well. And Saints of Los Angeles has some stuff that you could call a little bit doomy as well. So they kind of like to go to that place. It doesn't really match them very well, and it certainly doesn't match Vince Neil, as we've discussed before. But yeah, power to the music is totally that way on here. And then thanks to William Walker for this choice. I had asked him this question. He brought this one up, and I thought it was really good. Destroyer, from the first Twisted Sister album, is total doom in terms of its lack of speed. The production is punishing. Wouldn't say it's particularly doom production, but Dee's voice, and just the chord sequence is complete Devil's Tritone sort of feel, and it doesn't match anything else on the album, so it's kind of cool that way as well. And then also the Beast from this one is kind of the same deal. It's a slow doomy song, very very non-commercial song off this massive commercial, almost kiddie metal album. But it was totally heavy, and it's got some really cool licks in it. And then my last one is Guns N' Roses, The General, one of their later singles, or very recent single. It's completely non-commercial and dark and murky. Axl loves this kind of thing. There's quite a few doomy things on Chinese Democracy as well. They aren't particularly obviously a doomy band in the old days, but Axl has many different directions he likes to go in, and this is one. And it really divided the fan base. A lot of people don't like that General song. I think it's pretty cool that they did something just weird and artistic like that. So that is my 13, 14, and 15.
All right. All right, next up, I'm going to go with the last of the New Wave Riders from Utopia, Adventures in Utopia. Dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. That whole descending part of it just like absolutely kills me.
Yeah.
And it's just, and it's, on this album, I mean, this album is a really great album because it's got all sorts of different stuff on here. There's like new wave on here, there's pop, there's prog on here with Caravan, and then there's doom with Last of the New Wave Riders. It just sticks out on this album. It's like so heavy and so like, where did that come from? But yeah, that's from, what was that, 1980, I believe it was. Yeah, 1980.
Another one of these, what's the point of this band, where the idea is we're just a band that will and can do anything. And if we like the song, it's going on the album, right?
Yeah. Styles be damned, right? It's just
And
that's a perfect example of that, because every song is like completely different than the one that came before it. There's no cohesive flow to this album at all, but that's kind of what I like about it, because it's not afraid to go anywhere. Next up, we're going to go, the title is kind of evil, and the riff is evil as well. Evil Woman by the Doobie Brothers from The Captain and Me.
Yeah.
I mean, the beginning, it doesn't start off doing, but then all of a sudden, the chorus comes in, Evil Woman. And it's just like, where did that come from, right? But again, another perfect example. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff on this album. There's hard rock on here, there's pop on here, there's like country folk on here, there's that, the metal. It's like, what is going on with that, huh?
And that's really loose and trashy and grinding, that song too. It's like really a dirty song, right?
Totally dirty, yeah. And the way they have, especially on the chorus, the way they have the vocals recorded, it's like they just sound like like the harpies from hell. It's just like, what's going on? It's so uncharacteristic for this band. And then last but not least, probably the song that inspired this entire conversation is Round and Round by Aerosmith. At the end of Toys in the Attic, the second to last song. I mean, it's just, Aerosmith never did another song like it, dun, 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 dun. And again, simple is sometimes best. And Perry and Whitford just delivering this just absolutely slow, menacing, crushing riff in this song. That's just absolutely killer amidst all these other songs, which don't sound anything like it. So yeah, Aerosmith did a Doom song, Round and Round.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't mention that at the beginning, because that was the song that inspired this episode, because we did the riff stuff, and then that Aerosmith list came out through Rolling Stone. And and people are commenting all over, oh, I really like Round and Round and stuff, but the more interesting question is, where the heck did that come from? Like, what kind of, and so it's one of the best examples in this episode, even though Aerosmith is a hard rock band. I mean,
Right.
you might say the best examples are Crazy Horses or ELO or Stampeders or Doobie Brothers, right? But the Aerosmith one is like really kind of subtly artistically the best one, because even though they're a hard rock band and the fuzz pedal is on all the time for Aerosmith, um, they just seem completely unwired for that kind of song, right? And it's just so out of left field and so perfectly a massive doom song. It's like really, really almost like intentional. Like, let's write a song like Black Sabbath. I'd like to see what the guys say about that. I'm sure it's somewhere, because there's the big Aerosmith, oral history book, Walk This Way, that I'm there's probably a comment on that,
Yeah,
where
those guys. That's a
that
great
song
book
comes
too, by
from.
the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because they've never done anything like that, not even close. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they're a hard rock band, but they never kind of slow it down to that type of
Yeah.
dirginess ever
Yeah.
on any of their songs. I mean, we've talked over and over again about how Aerosmith are kind of like Rolling Stones on steroids, right? Even think the Stones. Did the Stones have any kind of like doomy songs?
Well, yes, honorable mention. So I've always thought that that Paint It Black kind of fits that, right? It's the first it's one of the first goth songs. So goth and doom go together a little bit. Obviously, it's not nearly arranged like a hard rock song, but that lick is very Diablos in Musica. I mean, even the title Painted Black is a perfect doom title, as it is a goth title. But what else did we not mention here? Oh yeah, Alice Cooper, Black Juju.
Yeah,
And we mentioned there was an earlier one. I think Inagata Davida is a perfect doom song from
right.
early on, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
again,
That might be the first one. That might be the first.
yeah, yeah. Although interesting, let us know in the comments if you can think of other true doom songs that are even earlier or around that time. But that is a really good example of a perfect doom lick. And then I also thought of like Robert Plant's Slow Dancer. It's got the snaky Led Zeppelin-y thing. Is that doom? Is that not? Whatever. But when you combine it with something that slow, maybe it is. And the big pounding drumming of Cozy on that one. And then Rush Working Man. Everybody talks about that as a doom song, right?
Yeah,
That riff is just a perfect Tony Iommi, early Tony Iommi kind of riff, right?
yeah. The tone, everything about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
very cool. Yeah, I'm wondering. I was just thinking about Jimi Hendrix, right? I'm just wondering if you could make a case for Voodoo Child, maybe.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, manic depression, maybe a little
Yeah,
more adventurous
Spanish
of a doom
Castle
title.
Magic, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
anything Cream's repertoire would qualify as Doom.
Well,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
Sunshine of Your
that's a
Love, I
little
guess.
Diablos in Musica, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and we know Trouble covered Tales of Brave Ulysses, although it's not very doom, but that's a doom band thinking they're doom,
yep,
enough to cover them, right?
yep,
Kind of
exactly.
thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, pretty cool.
yeah. So everybody watching, let us know if you think there are any that we kind of missed, where a non-Doom band, a normal band did a Doom song. I think we got a good cross section of all sorts of different genres here today. But there's ultimately, I'm sure there's plenty of other ones out there that we've kind of missed. So put those down in the comments below. Martin, what's going on your end with books and history in 5 songs and the Contrarians?
Yeah, History in 5 Songs. A new one just came out. It's called More Famous Last Words, because I did an earlier one, and this one I honed it down a little. So it's basically looking at the final lyrics of lead singers before they died,
Oh,
and going through a whole bunch of examples of that, probably 15, 20 examples broken up into the 5 things. And we got the Contrarians. We just did our album cover show. We just did a who at this point should go into the Rock Hall of Fame show. And we've got the new Rainbow book is now up at my site as of yesterday. So PayPal buttons are all there for the Run with the Wolf Rainbow on Record, and PayPal buttons are now there for the updated Iron Maiden album by album. And we've got Kicked in the Teeth, which got delayed this week, but we're going to do the Power Age episode next week. That's Kicked in the Teeth with John Gaffney, our ACDC podcast.
cool, very good. Let's see, what do we got going on? I don't believe we're going to have a professor's picks today. I was talking to Ken yesterday, and he said it's been a really light week as far as new releases and things coming in, so it may not be worth doing a show. So we may not have that later on today. We've got 4 Fusion Friday coming up tonight, so don't miss that. It's we've got 4 cool albums that George has picked that are all related because there are two brothers that kind of run the band. So it's 4 albums, basically two brothers in each band. So that's coming up tonight on 4 Fusion Friday. Tomorrow we've got the UK Connection. It's AOR Melodic Rock Day. So we got 3 cool albums we're going to be talking about, including one by a Southern rock band who did an AOR album. It was not very successful, but we're going to be talking about that along with 2 others. Can you guess which one it is? That's the clue I'm going to give you. And then on Sunday, I will be ranking the albums alongside Rich Catino of Gamma Ray, the great German power metal band. So that's coming up on Sunday. So lots to do, lots happening. Till then, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together, all the damn time. Hope to see some of you at Deep Purple, and yes, later on today at Bethel Woods up in Bethel, New York, the old Woodstock site. The plan is that once myself and Eric and Ralph and Steve and Lynn and everybody else who has seen the show, we're going to get together with both Martin and Rick Labonte, who saw the show in Toronto, and we'll do like a kind of like a roundtable review of the 2 shows. That should be coming up soon. Also, I'm going to be going and hitting a record store with Brendan Snyder in Poughkeepsie, New York, Dark Side Records. We're going to do a little kind of visit the record store type of thing. So that's coming up as well over the next day or two. So lots going on. For Martin Popoff, I'm Pete Pardo. See you next week here at the Fun House. We're going to finish up our riff show. We're going to tackle the 2000s. And till then, we'll see you. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.